So, as we race further and further towards the precipice with nuclear war and climate disaster being on the horizon that will end it all for us, the United States government would want nothing more in this moment not to deal with those current problems that I just outlined, but to have a hot war with China as tensions continue to heat up because of their actions. What I want to do is I want to go through this. Firstly, I would like to play you this clip from Mr. Marco Rubio, and as he, sings his woes of despair because of the ascendancy of the great power that is the People's Republic of China.
But then, not to mention, we do have near peer adversaries. We didn't 25 years ago. The United States lived in a unipolar world where we were the only show in town. Now there are at least one unprecedented near peer adversary. The Chinese Communist Party is a challenge to the United States, unlike greater even than what the Soviet Union was, because they are a commercial rival, a technological rival, a geopolitical rival, a diplomatic rival, and a commercial one. And in addition to all of that, they are also a military threat to the country as they continue to develop. And they have an interest in the region. They want to extract minerals and have mineral rights, certainly, but they also want leverage. They want control over countries so that they'll vote with them at international fora, and ultimately so they could potentially position themselves either on a rotational basis or permanently all over the world militarily and the like. In essence, they would love nothing more than to encircle the United States.
Wow, that right there exemplifies everything that's been happening over these past couple weeks, months, years, however long you want to log it. That was Mr. Marco Rubio, a neocon, a war hawk, a bloodthirsty, corrupt politician that would like to go to war with another nuclear-armed power. Yes, that is indeed what that was. So, of course, he started out there in that video, once again, as I said before, singing the woes of, a scorned American that is upset that the world that we're in, as he said, is no longer seemingly unipolar, with America being the hegemonic force that it previously was. There is another ascending power, and he's upset. He doesn't want to deal with it. He's mad. He wants to stop it, and then he just goes off the deep end. He starts attaching all of these objectives to the People's Republic of China that they have never stated that they have, that there's no evidence to provide that they have. He says that they would like to control other countries. Okay, well, let's look inward when we say that. The United States currently has put a lot of economic sanctions against Russia. Some can coin it economic warfare. That's a very accurate term. Well, Russia isn't particularly suffering due to those economic sanctions. You know who is suffering? Well, it's our good friend Europe. And they're suffering quite harshly as it pertains to food, energy, gas, and the like. And it's going to be a very tough, really cold and hard winter for Europe. But does this change American policy? Of course not. It stays the same, and our friend continues to suffer. That seems like control to me. You want to keep Europe close to you because they would go elsewhere and otherwise depend on people like the People's Republic of China. But it's incredibly convenient for you for that means of control and keeping your position in the world to damage Europe the way that they have been doing. And there are many other areas in which things like this, similar to it or even worse than, has been done, of course, at the hands of the U.S. government. But it's much too much for Mr. Rubio to understand or even conceive. He also goes on to say that they want to position themselves permanently militarily around the world. China doesn't have over 800 military bases stationed around the world. That would be the United States of America. China didn't invade places like Afghanistan, Iraq, Vietnam, and lose, by the way, but cause irreparable damage years and years and years, and then pull out and starve the people by not giving them their money. This is in reference to Afghanistan. And they're also not aiding and abetting a genocidal war in Yemen that Saudi Arabia is carrying out that we're helping them do. Right. They're not doing that. And also, he says this ridiculous nonsense about wanting to encircle America. We're trying to encircle China. And I'll get to that in just a second, but just hold on. We're also trying to encircle Russia with the NATO expansion nonsense. Look at what's happening in Ukraine. It's terrible what's going on the ground there. But this is once again things that were caused by the actions largely of the American government. But I want to stop and kind of pivot here, though not really, but just a bit, because this isn't, because Marco Rubio is a Republican, but this type of anti-China rhetoric isn't just specifically to the Republican neocon bloodthirsty war hawks. No, it's bipartisan. It's the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. I say this on many occasions, and I say it because it's important and it's really true. We don't have two parties here in this country, okay? It may seem like we do. We have one party. We have the party of war. Both parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, no matter how different they may try to make them seem or, all this other bullshit, they are both the parties of the military-industrial complex. That is who owns them, along with other entities and special interests, of course. But this is probably the most important one because this really holds the power to wipe life off of the face of the earth, of course, with war. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play for you this video of Mr. Ro Khanna, a progressive Democrat. He's no progressive Democrat. He's a pro-war Democrat, basically going at the People's Republic of China, smearing them and saying all these other insane, ridiculous, preposterous things regarding to Nancy Pelosi's potential visit to Taiwan.
On a different issue, Congress, President Biden has said the U.S. military believes a Taiwan visit by the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is, quote, not a good idea right now. You sit on the Armed Services Committee. Should she call off this possible trip to Taiwan?
No, she should not. I respect Speaker Pelosi. I mean, we're not going to let the Chinese Communist Party dictate where the Speaker of the House should go. Taiwan is an economic partner with us. That doesn't mean that her going there is somehow not recognizing the one China policy. She should absolutely go. And we need to speak out on human rights issues in China. And we need to speak out about the trade deficit in China. So I fully support her going.
But is it worth potentially, God forbid, provoking some sort of military response from the Chinese?
They should realize that that would be the worst thing they could do. I mean, they've seen this president, our country's resolve in Ukraine with rallying NATO. They've seen the sanctions on Russia. I mean, they would cripple their entire economy. They are so dependent on the United States in terms of the trade that we have. So we shouldn't allow them to bluff and dictate to America, the greatest nation in the world, where our Speaker of the House should travel. I mean, who are they to say that Speaker Pelosi shouldn't go to Taiwan?
Congressman Ro Khanna, thanks as usual for joining us.
Wow. It's as if we watched the same video over again. The one with Marco Rubio and that one right there with Ro Khanna. Basically the same sentiments, espousing the same beliefs with the same misguided mindset. What I want to do is I want to draw a really stark similarity between the two before I get into this more in-depthly. They say the Communist Party of China when referring to the China. Why not refer to it as China or the People's Republic of China or whatever accurate term there would be to refer to that location? No, they say the Communist Party of China because communism, it's still a somewhat taboo word here in America due to the Cold War and all the ridiculous propaganda surrounding it. And so they say it as a scare word to put fear into the hearts and minds of Americans that have no idea what communism is, but it sounds scary to them. And so Ro Khanna is basically being asked about Nancy Pelosi's potential trip to Taiwan that China has warned her she should not embark on. And China has really been warning the U.S. for a while now to stop heating up tensions with them regarding Taiwan. So essentially, the U.S. would like to basically ally, well, they already have, but they would like to make Taiwan another U.S. satellite, another military base. Now, it formerly was, but they want to go back to the old glory days. If you really want to understand this, I really suggest you look up the Taiwan Strait nuclear crisis of 1958. This was a period of time when there were nuclear weapons in Taiwan placed by the U.S. aimed at China, and they were threatening them with nuclear weapons, threatening to nuke innocent Chinese civilians simply due to the fact of what Mr. Marco Rubio outlined in his glorious speech of controlling another nation. That's all that it was. That's all that it is. It's all about control and keeping the position that a failed, falling country is experiencing. You know, as I've said before, the heydays of the American empire is over. It's coming to an end. Many very smart economists say that China will overtake the U.S. in this very decade. And as the U.S. is on the descendancy, it's flailing about, as I've said in the past, trying to do everything that it can to hold on, but it's not working out very well. It's not working out well at all. And back to Taiwan, just to kind of finish this off, there was a civil war after the Civil War in China. The far right wing, the losers, the KMT, they fled to Taiwan and essentially created their own kind of government and said that they were the leaders of the People's Republic of China. They were not. And of course, they had the support of the CIA, of the US, because why not? Because that, the communists were in control of China. And of course, if you have a policy and a politics and an ideology that does not fall in line with what the U.S. believes is correct, which is neoliberalism and neoconservatism, well, then, of course, we need regime change. We have to break you up. We need to point nuclear weapons at you. And then we're going to put a bunch of propaganda out there and say that you're the aggressors, that you're the one that everybody should be weary of. And they're using words like invade. China's going to invade Taiwan. Taiwan is a province of China. It's recognized by international law. It's recognized by the U.S. on paper due to the One China policy. You heard it in that video with Rokana that Nancy Pelosi flying to Taiwan wouldn't somehow violate the the One China policy, right? Which says that, of course, Taiwan is a part of China. But what they're doing is I guess I'll make a quick parallel. It'd be the same as if, after the Civil War in America, the secessionists, the traitors, they fled to Hawaii, and China sent troops, which is what the U.S. is doing to Taiwan, sent billions of dollars of weapons, which is what the U.S. is doing to Taiwan, sending diplomats, which is what the U.S. is doing to Taiwan, over to Hawaii, trying to sway them in order to go against the U.S. and seat nuclear weapons there and point them at the U.S. We would go to war as soon as they got word of that. I mean, it wouldn't even happen. That's essentially what's happening. It'd be the same saying that China is going to invade Taiwan would be like saying the U.S. is going to invade Florida. Think of how ridiculous that sounds. Think of how ridiculous it sounds for the Chinese to be sending their diplomats weapons, arms, and troops to train secessionists in Texas or California. It's basically the same thing. And they were trying to defend it as if it's something that it's not. And once again, that was Rokana being incredibly ridiculous. His wife is also a big recipient or she has a lot of stock in the military industry, companies like Raytheon, Boeing, and all of that. So she has special interest in that regard. So I guess you can draw a comparison there or a similarity and say that, he's speaking like this due to that or whatever else. But I do want to give you some remarks. Mr. Joe Biden, the current U.S. president, spoke to Xi Jinping. And I want to just give you a sentence of what he had to say because it is kind of harrowing. And it really shows us where we're headed as the United States continues to heat up these tensions with China, wanting to go to war with them. On the phone call with U.S. President Joe Biden Thursday night, President Xi Jinping warned against playing with fire over Taiwan without directly mentioning Pelosi's possible trip. And he said, and I quote, "Those who play with fire will perish by it." And I'll end the video by saying this. And I watch many other people talk about this, and they make this same comparison. And it goes like this. Back when the U.S. was still a colony of the British and they decided they wanted to break apart, there was the revolution, of course. And after the revolution that the Americans had won, they won their independence, the British decided that it wasn't good and they wanted that old colony back again. And so we had the war that's called the War of 1812. Well, they lost that war too. It didn't go so well when they tried to stop the upcoming power from, ascending. That same thing is kind of sort of happening now, where you see a power on the decline. This time it's not the British, it's the American Empire. And you see a power on the rise. This time it's not the Americans, it's the People's Republic of China. And the power that's on the decline is trying everything that it can to stop that power that's on the rise. But history shows us on many occasions that it doesn't go well.